Right, 6:30 something, 6:32. Hey, there we go. Okay, finish up. We're just starting. I just will call the meeting to order and rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Jim? Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome. Good evening. So a couple things we wanted to bring to your attention with the report tonight. First off, the big wrestling update. So our varsity wrestling team was just chosen to receive the Division I Section 2 Sportsmanship Award. Especially rewarding because this award is given out by the wrestling officials. So certainly a great compliment to our student athletes from their behavior point of view. And then the newest addition to the report came this morning. I was able to get over there on Saturday for a little bit. And for the first time in our school history, the team won the sectional title. So a big move for our wrestling team. They had a nice little time these last couple of weeks from getting a sportsmanship award to actually winning a sectional title. So we wanted to congratulate them and our coaches for a great season. This is the season also for ESSA accountability, not quite as exciting as the wrestling season, but there is good news here. We get an accountability status determination by the state, and once again, we are where we want to be in terms of that. The technical term is LSI, Local Support Improvement, but essentially it's the highest designation that we can obtain. All of our schools are in good standing, so that's positive news as well. And then we are moving very systematically and logically through the Warrior name change. At this point, after the meetings with our student leadership group and the community forum, the committee is ready to launch its survey. So we wanted to notify folks that was there. And we thought we'd give the public a sneak preview of the video from our students.
If you haven't heard, Averill Park will no longer be known as the Warriors. We had to change the name because of a New York State mandate. As we look to the future, we're really excited to be a part of this tradition that'll last long after we graduate. Over the past few months, a bunch of us at the high school have been meeting with a group of administrators to discuss a bunch of things surrounding the name change.
We've spoken to all different students, staff members, and community members, and came up with a list of potential nicknames. We aren't making this decision alone, though. All of you have the chance to provide input too, and that's really exciting.
This isn't just about nickname. Our name could eventually put on sports jerseys, school apparel, and gym floors. We also want to know if a mascot associated with the new name is important to you. Do you want a mascot roaming the sidelines at football games, rallies, assemblies, and more?
Our elementary schools each have their own nicknames. The Western Lake Raccoons, the Post and Kill Penguins, and the Miller Hill Tigers. We want to know if you would like to keep those or if you would like to come together and celebrate our mascot as one, grades K through 12. It is essential that everyone feels heard and the entire school community stays involved in the decision-making process. To that end, we want everyone to take a survey. For students, that will be shared by teachers or in your school emails. If you have a cell phone, you can use the QR code displayed above.
When you notice the script, you'll see a long list of names. Choose any 5 you want to see move on to the next round. And if you have your own idea for a name you'd like to see, go ahead and put it on in there.
This is just the first round of voting. We will be reaching out to you all for more input as we move forward.
So that survey will be coming out shortly. We want to thank Mr. Keelace and Mr. Bubniak are leading it, the charge for us, as well as our student representatives have done a great job trying to put this together and make that happen. Excited about the survey. We're going to roll it out for our elementary students, middle level and high school level students, as well as out to the community. So Moving on to another Brian Radowitz creation, our celebration of success. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Awesome, thanks, Jim. Any questions? Good. This is the first public comment period that is strictly for items on the agenda. We do have 2 forms, but they're for items, topics not on the agenda. The good news is that we'll probably get to the second comment period pretty quick. All right, now that I said that, just cross it. I know, I just jumped up. So we'll go right into our next budget presentation, which is regarding the instructional. It is right there. Thank you.
So a little change in plans. I know Samantha and Jesse were kind of joking around. As you know, the last couple cycles that we've done this, we followed a pattern, right? First presentation has been Carrie doing the non-instructional, then Matt has done the instructional, and then Carrie's come back and done some financial information, tax cap, those type of things. Then we've added the next meeting being the superintendent's recommended budget. After that, we give you a kind of a meeting off of presentations to discuss budgetary issues and then come back and adopt a budget. We, however, changed that up a little bit and thought that was important to do for the board and for the community to talk through the status of where we are right now, given all that's happened recently with the foundation meeting. So we did a presentation this morning for the administrators, and then we got to the high school, middle school, and elementary school faculty meetings today. So this is the 5th time that I've done the presentation today. So I got it memorized. But we think it's important, and we thought it was important to get to everyone to tell them what was going on and provide this update. The board certainly is very well aware of this information in many ways. So it might not be some new stuff in there, at least in the beginning, in that budget status portion. So as always, we want to start our budget presentation with our goals and our mission statement. And we've had these 3 goals, which we're thankful to the board for keeping consistent. The third one being the newest of the 3. The other 2 have actually been goals since I've come back in this role in 2017. And our mission statement, obviously, is something that we strive to reach every day, which is to meet the needs of our students and create opportunities for them, every student, every day. The second slide in the budget presentation that's been consistent, really since I've been doing this, is this guiding principles document, right? These bullet points have been what we have tried to follow as we are making decisions. We know that we are always facing financial issues and trying to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollar, and we want to make sure that we have some principles that we're following. The first one, obviously, is the budget has to be the financial representation of our academic program. We want those 2 things to be in alignment. Our district goals must utilize our resources wisely, right? We know we have very limited resources. We want to make sure we're using them appropriately. We want to make our decisions based on data and less on how they kind of feel, right? But that we're doing things that are data driven. And then the 4th bullet, really important, right? Because this is something that comes up a lot. We are facing decreasing enrollment, and we have tried very systematically since I've been back to reduce staff through attrition where possible, right? It's not always easy, right? It's not that every person who's retired has not been replaced, but when we've been able to do it and not impact program or impact program as minimally as possible, we have tried to use that as a guiding principle because we know that we are struggling financially, it seems every year, and that we are reaching a cliff, whether it's stimulus money coming off or tax cap issues. So this is something that's really driven what we do. And we know we are sensitive to the community's thought process of if you're having decreased enrollment, you should have decreasing staff. And we have tried to follow that. And we're going to show you numbers that we have done that actually where possible. So where did we start? Just as kind of a reminder, and we wanted to kind of get this out again for the board, the community, our employees today. Last year, we reduced our budget by $1.3 million. An important number because that number is going to come back as we go through this presentation. So you want to kind of keep that number in mind. But that was the number that we had to cut last year. Going back to that principle of attrition, right, where possible, we have reduced. So when I got back in 17 to really that kind of COVID year budget, we did reduce by 6 FTE. FTE stands for full-time equivalent. It's a person, right? So think of that as a 6-person reduction. We did do that, and we were doing that again where we could. We have a little bump during those COVID years because of the stimulus money. So we did have a little bit of an increase, but if you go back, for those who were on the board at that point, we were about to make some pretty significant cuts, and then we got the stimulus money. We got those monies really in March. We were showing AIS cuts and those type of things going on because we knew we were going to further reduce. The stimulus money kind of bailed us out. We thought we used it pretty wisely, put it into people and peel those people into the ones that really directly service our students. So that was sort of where we were in 17, 18 through 2021. Skip the COVID years and you get to last year where we reduced by a net of 7 positions. The actual number of reductions was 11. Right, we had to add 4 positions back due to special education needs. So those are need-based ads. But if it wasn't for those need-based ads, we would have reduced by 11 for our number of reductions in 1 year. Again, pretty significant. The budget-to-budget increase we just talked about briefly when Questar was here. We were talking about how we've tried to be good financial stewards of our monies. A 1.63 budget-to-budget increase is very low. And we have strove to keep that at that percentage, keep it low, and keep everything as financially sustainable as possible. And then we've also tried to not increase the use of our reserves or our fund balance. Again, that's sort of the savings account. You don't want to go to that, just like in your own family expenses. You don't want to use that money to meet your daily needs and your daily bills, right? So we've tried very hard to not increase that, and we've been able to do that so far. But again, keep that slide in mind, because as we go through this process, I think more likely than not, we're going to be asking the board or talking to the board about dipping into our reserves at a greater amount than we have in the past.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, oh yeah.
On this slide, just for clarification, we had a budget-to-budget increase of 1.63%, but we reduced by 1.3 million, and that is because, and this is what I want clarification on to make sure, if we rolled over the budget due to all the contracts and stuff we had, that would have been even greater than 1.6. So that's why we had to cut.
Exactly.
Because we had increases in the contracts for employment. Fuel
costs, supplies, contract, all those things. The price, that goes up. What we call, you're going to see it later on, we call it a modified rollover budget. So if you take what you're doing this year and do it again next year, how much is that going to cost? It's not a direct comparison because you have attrition, you have some things that are coming in and out. Breakage for people retiring. So what we call is a modified version. We take what we have this year, and if we were to roll it over the same program, how much would that cost us? So that number was greater. So even when we reduced it by the 1.3 million, it got us to a percentage of 1.63. So thank you. That's a good clarifying question.
Thank you.
So as we kind of go through this, there's a little bit of a perfect storm issue. You also have this, right? So we had these federal stimulus funds. Again, we're grateful we received them. We think we used them wisely. We put them into people, usually or mostly at the intervention service level. And we thought we did a good job with that. We had a plan. Ideally, as people retired, the people we hired with stimulus money, we're going to kind of fill those. But like every other plan, things change, right? And people retire at a different time. Our needs change, all that. So we've tried to be as proactive and well planned out and well thought out with the additions, and that we would not leave ourselves in a hole when this money ran out. That said, sort of inevitable, right? We got all this money coming into us, which helped us and which we used. It's now ending. So the first one of them already ended, the top one, and the second one ends this year. If you go back to last year, as a quick reminder, remember we took the AIS positions and we kind of took them out of the general fund. So if you think the general fund is our regular budget, our operating budget, we try to, and it was more of an accounting, bookkeeping type of thing to make it simpler for you, for us, for everyone to say, okay, those positions are kind of not part of the core program and they're kind of easier to track. Let's pull them out because we knew we were keeping things in line with our classroom teachers, our regular mandated type stuff. And we kept them in a side, put them in the side, knowing that eventually this year we're gonna have to bring them back if we want to keep them and take things out. Either way, it was just gonna be a game of what goes in or what stays in. Bottom line being that money that was there is now gone, right? It is then running out. So what do we do? Go back to, we actually talked about it during these meetings during our superintendent's report. The New York State budget deficit has been a big topic. At one point, it was $9+ billion, right, with a big. They, in the course of their projections and their updates, they reduced that number to about $4 billion, right? So the state is telling us that there was a huge budget deficit. We knew that. We also then started hearing that we might get less than 3% foundation aid. Carrie was kind of hearing that in her meetings. I was hearing that in mine. So we started saying, okay, what's going on here, right? You guys already know well about the foundation aid and how it was fully funded last year. And that was great news. And it was a big win, which it was wonderful, but that we were not one of the winners, right? We got the 3% increase, whereas some of our neighbors got double digit, 17, 20% increases. That was not us. We got the 3%. And then we started hearing, hey, you might not get 3, right? It might be less than that because of this deficit. I think for some of us who've been around for a little bit longer, it brought back the GEA or the gap elimination adjustment type of language of, hey, the state has a deficit, you have money that's saved up, why don't you start using that money? And the state adjusted aid accordingly. And it was a big thing back in sort of a dark period for many districts, including our own. So we started to hear a little bit of that. So what did we do? Mid-November there, the board started an advocacy subcommittee, right? Samantha and Meg and Michelle are on that. We said, okay, how can we kind of make a difference? How can we get ahead of this a little bit? That was our plan, our hope as we started going through this. So then end of November comes, we went down and saw the elected officials, right? Very thankful to Assemblyman Vendette and Senator Ashby and Assemblyman McDonald for having us and listening to us. And they were certainly very supportive, but we weren't getting a ton of traction because the talking point, which is accurate and hard to dispute, is education was fully funded, right? Kind of the message was, there was a problem with the formula, we fully funded you, education sort of is good now, right? We didn't agree. It's not where we were, right? But that was sort of the talking point, and we weren't getting very far. I think there was frustration about how are we going to get this message out. Then the first run comes out based on state law, keywords as we go forward, a little foreshadowing. We get a flat foundation aid number, right? We get 0. The exact same number that we got this year is what we're going to get next year. So essentially a 0 number, which is really an increase. Really a decrease, because we know our expenses are going up. So if you're going to say it's flat, while that is factually true, it's not helpful to us. It's actually kind of a decrease because we're not getting the percentage of revenue that's going to keep us in line with our expenses. So, okay, we know we're flat. Now we're 3% and then 2%. Now we're at flat, and that's the first run. But there's hope that this is going to change. Kept doing things. January 9th, we meet with the governmental relations director at NISBA, the School Boards Association, again, trying to figure out what can we do, what's happening. And again, I think, Meg's not here, but Michelle and Samantha would say, we weren't getting much traction, right? We weren't getting much support. People understood, but we weren't really hopeful. And then this happened, right? This was the game changer. So on January 16th, the budget proposal from the governor comes out, and we actually get not 3% and not 2% and not flat. We actually get $159,000 less, right? So actually a decrease. This budget run by the governor, her proposal, violates the statute. It violates the law, right? Under 2 ways. One, it's very clear in the law that you have to hold districts harmless. You cannot get less aid in the following year. We are getting less aid. Us and other districts, right? We know some of our neighbors in this case are being cut with numbers that begin with million, right? So we're actually less hurt by that, quote unquote, than other districts. Still a significant cut for us. And then secondly, the regulation, the law states you have to follow the CPI, right? That inflationary factor. Well, it's at 4.1. That was the number supposed to be used. The governor's proposal uses 2.4. Anytime you divide or multiply a number by a smaller number, you're going to get a smaller number, right? So districts that were going to get foundation aid got less. Some that were kind of right over went to hold harmless. Some like us actually go under. And now we have a situation where we've gone from hopefully 3% to actually a negative number. So what did we do? Maybe in the end, this ends up being somewhat of a positive, right? Because we were not getting any traction, and now this proposal kind of got everyone's attention. As we talked about here, half the districts are now getting less money, and it's causing all sorts of issues throughout the state. Definitely an issue. So what do? We try to really increase our advocacy, right? You look at bullets 1 and 4. We actually, for the first time, sent out community engagement emails with the emails for our legislators and our local officials. Hey, email them, call them, providing information, right? We had 2 board members, Michelle was one of them, was here, who attended the Assembly press conference that Assemblyman Vendette put on. It ended up starting small and getting bigger, had representatives from throughout the state. One of our board members actually spoke at that press conference, again, trying to get Averill Park in front of this a little bit and trying to gain some momentum. Senator Ashby reached out to us, did a press release that he wanted to put on about restoring governor's education cuts. He asked if we'd be interested in putting a quote in there. We did. So I'm quoting his press release. So again, we started to try and push things a little bit more. And we're actually starting to hear this issue being a bigger deal. From no one wanted to talk about foundation aid to suddenly, you're seeing foundation aid stories on the news, right? You're seeing it in the newspaper. You're seeing things. So we're viewing that hopefully as a positive, right? We tend to try and be selective about what type of media we dive into, right? Channel 13 reached out and asked if we would talk about it. We absolutely said we would. So we got in the news about that, again, trying to keep Averill Park at the forefront of it. And then just in these few days of February, we had a few of our board members and myself participated in NYSBA's virtual day. Tomorrow we have another email going out similar to the last ones that actually comes with a template. You might have saw it in your NYSBA packets that were handed out through email. It actually has a thing where you just click your representative and it sends an automatic message out. That's going to go out to the community tomorrow. And then we have the in-person lobby day on Wednesday, which a few of us are going to that as well. So again, trying to continue to make the case that we frankly need more and deserve more in terms of state aid, because we feel like our students deserve it and we do not feel like it is something that we should or want to pass on to the local taxpayer. The state has not funded education for our district the way it should have. So where are we right now? Well, at this time, we're usually developing a budget, right? It's the budget development process, usually a singular word. This time it is not. So we are actively engaged in developing 4 separate budgets, right? Based on 4 separate revenue streams. The 3%, the 2%, the flat, and the governor's proposal, which actually has the decrease. That's important because the next slide is going to show you the impact of where we are right now. So to Jesse's point before, we have a modified rollover budget. So Carrie has taken what we have this year, rolled it over to next year, again, making some tweaks and changes just based on, okay, we know that person is going to retire, we know this is going away, whatever. So it's not like a literally an exact rollover, but it's like a best educated guess of a rollover budget. What we did in that is we added together the general fund monies and the stimulus funds, because we kind of consider that right now to be essentially it's all general fund. It's just 2 different pockets, right? But it's all money that we have, that we're spending, that we need to spend going forward. So when you take a look at that rollover, that modified rollover budget, our deficit ranges from 1.4 to 2.1 million, right? Important because if you go to one of the earlier slides, last year's total decrease or cuts were 1.3. Best case scenario puts us at a $1.4 million cut. So we're looking at significant cuts under the best of circumstances right now. The revenue difference between that 3% foundation aid, which we thought was sort of the minimum, right? It's what we got last year, and kind of what we heard was, hey, foundation aid's been fully funded, right? Don't expect a ton of money. We've done our job. Expect these smaller increases. Expect 3% increases. Okay, didn't necessarily agree with it, but that's what we were kind of told to expect. That's what we were looking at. The difference between that and the governor's proposal is almost $700,000, right? That's a huge revenue hit for us. So what does that mean? As we develop this budget, we are going to almost certainly be using an increased amount of reserves, right? We are going to have to start dipping more and more into that savings, not the whole thing, but there's no way to do this and not have significant cuts without using some of that money, right? Not a good long-term strategy, but I think at this point we feel a necessary step to mitigate the hand we've been dealt by the governor. Also, to make this just a little bit worse, we've been told by our people in Albany to expect a late budget, right? With a few different factors, with their holiday breaks for the religious holidays, and I think with some of the stuff going on here, with the foundation and other budget issues, we are being told to expect a late budget. Doesn't change our calendar, right? We have to have a budget adopted in mid-April, give or take, and we're being told you might not get a budget from the state of New York until May, right? Which is just going to compound the gray and the fluidity of this whole situation. So that's just the background, right? That's the non-normal stuff. But stuff that we thought was important to share with the faculty today, what we want to share with the community today, and share again with the board, knowing that you guys have been in the trenches in this, so I don't think any of that was really too new or crazy, but we wanted to make sure we got that message out. This would be where Matt would usually pick up and just do the instructional portion, but unfortunately, you're gonna get more of me for tonight. So what do? We asked our principals, our administrators, our supervisors to come to us with a list of things that they would add if they could. Now, we talked a lot about this. Last year, we kind of did this, and then I think we probably spent too much time on that because as we went through it, we realized we were gonna have cuts. So this year was like, well, do we do it at all? We know we're gonna be cutting. And the answer was yes, because we feel like it's a valuable exercise, and it's sort of that visionary work of what would you add, right? So then became the dilemma of, do we even show the slide to you and to the faculty? Is it just adding insult to injury? But I at least, speaking for myself, felt very strongly that we should put it out there, because I think this is a huge talking point for our elected officials. When you look at that list of things, those are the crazy, pie in the sky, dreamy things Averill Park is looking for. A business teacher in the high school, because we don't have a business program, a special education teacher to meet needs of students, and K-5 social workers, when we know that we are way undersubscribed compared to other elementary schools in terms of our social workers, and a music edition that really is a music program that never recovered from the last go around when we were cut and we were never able to bring it back. So that's sort of the crazy stuff that we're looking for, right? When we talk about, we'll just trim more or it's a local problem, that's it. That's what we're looking to do. Stuff that I think is pretty standard and should be expected, right? Is your question, Michelle?
Yes. So I'm just curious. I was unaware, obviously my children are small, that we didn't have a business program in the high school.
Mhm.
Is that something that BOCES offers, or if we, I mean, I guess has this never existed?
We had a business program years ago.
8, 9.
About
We cut it in the gap.
0809?
Yeah.
So about 0809 was the last time. It's been a long, I knew it's been a long time.
We cut it in the gap elimination.
We had 5
last year in England.
So
My class.
Bray said we had 5
Business teachers.
We had 5 business teachers back in like 0809. What did you say, Terry?
I said my class now is the closest.
That's true. Terry's financial literacy class is the closest we have to a business class or business program. So that was a budget cut in the dark days. So kind of like the K-12 music, there was cuts made, and as much as we were able to bring things back, we have not brought everything back even to that level.
Were they well attended? Like they were strong electives?
Terry's class is like overbooked every year, isn't it?
Currently, the business department was very strident, yeah. It started off at 5 and then it ended up over the course of like 3 or 4 years down to 1.
Yeah.
And then gone.
Well, if I wasn't fired up already,
Well,
come
Yeah,
on
it-
Wednesday.
It was-
that was one of the things that we just couldn't recover from during the gap elimination when we cut 25% of staff. And then you saw those charts last time where we're just growing, our budget is growing at a much, much, much slower pace than everybody else's because of all these factors with the foundation aid. And we wanted, I mean, I was on the board, that was my first year on the board, and we ended up cutting like 25% of our teaching staff because that was the cards we were dealt from the state with the gap elimination adjustment, which by the way was supposed to be 1 year,
Right.
and it happened over 4 years. And so it was awful, and we tried to build back, and that's one of the things, like, we're still asking for that.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it's horrible, Michelle, for sure.
So that was the kind of the visionary, what we would add. And then here's the reality, right? So at this point, we don't have specifics, to be honest. So we're running things through. But if you kind of go through our list one by one and sort of a little more specific, but still kind of general terms, class size and intervention services are largely elementary issues, right? You're talking about classroom teachers, which increase class size at the elementary level. The intervention services, as we kind of talked about, we had number of 9 down to 6, and down. So how many intervention teachers are we going to be able to keep at the elementary level? Remember, they service our most struggling learners. Certainly a program that, going back to our original slides about data, we know from the data that our AIS program is working well, and it's actually making a difference for kids. So it's something that has value. So not only feels good, but actually is doing good stuff, right? So the double benefit. Our special areas, again, we are not a district with fluff in the special area subjects, whether it's the elementary or the middle school, high school, but we have to look at that. Electives, as you could imagine, is the middle school, high school version, especially high school version of class size, right? That's where, if you're looking for cuts at a high school, you go to the elective side of things. Athletics, again, just like everything else, we don't have freshman sports. We don't have a multitude of assistant coaches. We don't have, more than one modified team in a program. We're already kind of running a bare bones athletic program, but we're looking at that in terms of what can be done there. Our same thing, building and district administration. There's not a lot of fluff there when you look at our number of administrators. So it's not like we have extra people doing extra things. You're down to what we would pretty much consider the bare bones there as well. So there's not much to give on either those sides. And then the aids and transportation are sort of the non-instructional. And again, same type of thing. Not like these are extra people just kind of sitting around doing nothing, right? If you look at transportation, we already know we have less drivers than we need and less runs than we need, whether it's late buses, those type of things. So there's not a lot there. We have a limited number of mechanics. It's not like we're overpopulated in any department. Building and grounds also is still under from the bad old days. If you go back to the business program and the music teacher, they're in that same boat of being understaffed and still never fully recovered. So this list is kind of broad. We're going through right now with the administrative team, listing things out, putting priorities next to them. And there's all sorts of dominoes as you try to build this puzzle. Sometimes you take this away, it actually has an impact on this one. So you have to take this one. It's just, we're trying to figure some of those things out. And the 4 possible numbers, at least right now, and it could be more, I guess, in terms of foundation, it doesn't make it easier, but that's kind of the work that we're doing now. The last thing that we wanted to kind of bring up was special education. In terms of programs, you can imagine special education is a heavy hitter, right? It's small classes. By definition, it's more adults. So what we're trying to do is look at how we're delivering this service and trying to get our people who are involved in the trenches there, teachers, in terms of what we can do in terms of program or instructional delivery, those type of things. And the example probably most recently, some of you remember the 612 program that we brought to now Post and Kill. It was the same thing. There was 2 reasons to do that. One, cost savings, because to outplace kids is very, very expensive. So we knew we could do the program cheaper, but also we all felt an obligation to keep our kids, especially our youngest ones, in program in the district where possible, right? We didn't want to start putting kids out of program at district placements unless it's the only option. And we thought we had a kind of an obligation to go through that to make sure we're doing everything we could. The program has had definitely some bumps over time. Very happy to say it's functioning very well right now, and very fortunate that it's going well, and it's been a lot of time and effort and energy on a lot of people's parts to get us there. That's an example of kind of maybe when we look at special education delivery, is there a different way that we can do some things to either make it cost neutral or maybe some savings, because the key factor here is we know that the kids that we're getting and coming in are having greater needs, including what we know is coming through the preschool, right? So we know what is coming in terms of needs already is going to push the limits of the system in terms of what we can supply and what we can obtain, what we can handle. So there's going to be some natural expenses like last year where we had to increase the special education department. There's going to be some of those type of pressures solely based on student need to properly service kids and give them what their IEP mandated services would be. That's the report in terms of the context and then the instructional side of things. Questions? Yeah.
So, since you basically have to play out 4 different scenarios, when do you decide which of those things to cut and tell the staff and the community?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? So we're, from that point of view, we're definitely a little bit ahead. And we said this, I feel like we said it in all the presentations, I think we did, maybe not. There's an issue, right, where you're trying to be transparent and honest and upfront while also not causing undue stress and angst, right? And unfortunately, many of us have been through this a lot here, right? I remember walking the halls of Algonquin with the building rep, handing out notes to people saying, you might be cut, right? It's so you don't want to do that too late because you want to give people a chance to find jobs if they're really going to be cut. You also don't want to do it too early where you're, creating a storm that doesn't need to be, just adding stress to people's lives. So I don't really have a good answer for you. I think what we want to probably do is take the month of February, right, to kind of go through this. Hopefully we get some kind of budget direction from the legislature that would help to kind of say, okay, where are they with this whole thing?
You can knock it down from 4 alternatives to 3.
Yeah, or maybe even down to 2, right? If we can get rid of the negative or the flat and know that we're getting something, that helps.
We get to pick, yeah.
Right, so, at this point, and maybe that's part of the political game, suddenly you're kind of hoping for 2%, whereas that was not, we were counting on 3 and hoping for more. Now suddenly we're hoping to get positive, right? So I don't know the politics of it, but what we're trying to do is go slow and fast at the same time. So, yeah, your budget has to be adopted mid-April, so you kind of play that schedule out of where we are. It goes quick, right? We meet every couple of weeks, and every couple of weeks we want to provide information as we go through that process.
Yeah. So this is gonna sound crazy, it's just more information, but do we have the room and the capacity to have those classes if we were able to fund them?
Which
Like
class?
the business classes, the music, like the classes is your wish list.
Do we have like the physical space to do it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We're fine with that, okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
Yep.
Layout wise.
I just feel it's like very hard for you guys to make these decisions when you don't even know what the budget's going to be from the state. I feel it's almost impossible. How do you know exactly what to cut when you have no idea what we're gonna get until after we have to do that? So it's mind-boggling how they expect us to have a budget on time, but then they're not gonna.
Yeah, the process is not aligned. The
Right.
calendars are not, they don't lend to a good process.
Right.
The one thing, the state, and Carrie can tell you, prior to Governor Cuomo, the state was historically late every year, right? Which put schools in this situation all the time. It was the norm. Cuomo did always have on-time budgets pretty much, which did help with this budget process, where now we're kind of back to this past the deadline, which doesn't help procedurally from that point of view.
So even at the hold harmless 3%, we have to cut more than $1 million. And so I can't imagine at the hold harmless level, Averill Park is the only district that's going to have that issue. So what is the state doing to take some mandates off our plate so we can cut things that are not affecting kids? Like reporting, all this reporting that we have to do and all these other things that we're. Yeah, well, yeah, let's start with the name change that's because,
Right.
Yeah, I think.
Are they doing anything for mandate relief?
No.
Because they've given us lip service for that since I've been on the board 15 years ago.
Well, I was gonna say, you're our most veteran board member, so I think that is something that people who've been through this have talked about a lot over time, right? Mandate relief. I've been in places here where you write the list of things that could be cut and would be cut. it's almost like that conversation went away, especially with COVID and all that stuff. You don't hear that anymore, but to the point, or some people kind of talking, we're fine with that stuff at this point. They've added 2 significant mandates to us, right? The Warrior name change is gonna cost us close to $500,000, right? We're looking at about a $500,000 bill. Now, part of that is the gym floor and the track, which we can wait a little bit until they need to be resurfaced. But anyway, you cut it, that price tag is still approaching $500,000. And then you have the electric vehicle fleet stuff, which adds, again, a cost. So, right, wrong, or indifferent, the issue is that we still have to do these things, and they all come with a price tag, and they're not funding it. And that's the problem.
On top of all the other unfunded
Right.
mandates.
From the past, that just
From the
never went away.
past.
Yeah.
And the things that aren't mandated that we really need to keep, like school nurses, they're still not mandated, right?
No. We've never looked at getting rid of all of our nurses.
No, of
so
course,
I'm
of
like-
course not.
Yeah, I don't know, I know
Because
there's,
you're,
yeah.
because there's certain medications that nobody can deliver
Right.
except for unless you're a registered nurse. And so, but the state is just so backwards, they really need to revamp and prioritize what's important to our students, because you're talking about population loss, but yeah, so now we're gutting our educational system for our most valuable resource that we have here in the state. And here we go again.
Right.
I mean,
Exactly
yes,
right.
still, but this feels worse than normal. Sorry.
Well,
No, you should, it's good, I think it's good to have that context, that it's historical, that it's, that this isn't a new thing.
It's not.
It's not new. Carrie, or Jim, I guess. I just wanted, there's something in there, and there was talk about how school districts have these reserves and about how we should, but correct me if I'm wrong, that there's speaking of mandates, there's a mandated level of reserves that, that we cannot exceed a certain amount of reserves. Yes, we can't hoard like $7 million a week, right? Correct? Is that where Jen, sorry?
So for your unappropriated, so your fund balance that isn't in a specific reserve, the maximum you can keep is 4%. Your other reserves that you're allowed to set, they usually have some kind of limitation, right? So like our capital reserve is capped at what the voters approved it for. When you get into things like unemployment, workers' comp, and ERS, your auditors will look at those to see if they're somewhat reasonable in terms of what your expenses are. So they look at things like that. Tax certiorari, you have to have exact claims. So there's not limits per se, but there's a reasonability testing on a lot of those to make sure that you're not, your workers' comp expenses a year are $200,000 and you have $20 million sitting in your workers' comp reserve, right? Your auditors will look at that and be like, that's really not reasonable for you to do that. So, but the unreserved is the cap of the 4%. Your reserves are a little bit different. So there's like almost 2 pieces of fund balance.
So there's basically like an oversight mechanism and then like a mandate mechanism that would sort of control, our,
Yeah, that's a fair
the
way to put it.
hoarding, right? Well, so, and I just wanted to bring that up because I feel like that's come up a few times where there's this implication that we're like the dragon and Lord of the Rings, right? Like hoarding our gold. And, sorry, my husband loves it. But it's like, number one, if they want that cap to be lower, they could say, make it lower, and then we would have to comply with that. And so we are, if they are dissatisfied, this is the way I say it, if they're dissatisfied with that, then it's on them to change it, not us. If they say, here's your cap, then we should go to that cap. And I just want to remind everybody that, Carrie, you've given presentations in the past about just how important that reserve is, so that when emergencies happen, they don't happen on the scale of, an emergency happens in my house, it's like $2,500. We have to fix something, we have to replace something, and it's a lot more than that. Like, again, the last big one was that storm, like, a month before school, was like $2 million. So this implication that we want to start dipping into our reserves is that, I think the business students who will someday return, the financial literacy students would probably look at that as not good practice. So I just want to make sure that it got brought up, but it's Not hearing.
Jim, I do have a question. Do you happen to have, and you can say it later, but the statute that you said that violates, do you actually have that?
I don't. Do you have it?
I'm sure we can get it from one of the state organizations,
Yeah.
the actual statute, yeah.
I'm just curious if we can get that before Wednesday.
It's been one of those emails of the last 2 weeks.
I read a lot of emails. I haven't seen it, but I could be
Sure.
We can give Michelle some homework from her sick then.
more homework.
I think that, I agree, I think that'd be good information to have for Wednesday.
Yeah. Carrie usually, we actually had in the podcast a guy from State Aid Planning, which is a Questar service, a really good Questar service. We can reach out to him and get that.
And I did want to congratulate you on that because I think that was a great recap to show what exactly we've done, how we try to get ahead of it, and let the public know everything that's been going on behind closed doors. A lot of hours into it.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. All right,
Thanks,
all
Jen.
right, thank you.
And the only thing that I would say is that definitely now as a community is the time to engage, so. Don't be shy. All right, another real fun topic. We're gonna go over to, this is not where I'm voting on anything, we're just starting this discussion, or carrying it on, I should say, just regarding electric vehicles, because time is ticking away, and it's gonna be 2035 and real quick. Do you guys
Yeah,
want to say something?
if I could,
Jeff has.
if I could set up before, just to start to frame the discussion. And no, you're not voting on anything tonight. We are looking for some guidance, however. So it's a process that Mark Primo in transportation, working with Carrie, goes through. You have to do letters of intent. So you can't buy the buses, right? Because you have to have it voter approved and the funding. They're obviously very expensive. But we have to go through a process where you have to sign letters of intent. And that sort of gets you in the queue for your buses. So last time when Carrie did her presentation, she kind of provided you with a couple different options in terms of what you want to do. So we're not asking for like a 100% definite if you can't get to that tonight, but some kind of guidance or feedback, because the later we wait, the further back in the queue we get. And I know Mark's concern is that we're not going to have the buses on time. There's already sort of a backlog with all of that stuff. So we're later than we usually are because of the electric vehicle situation. So as Samantha said, we wanted to have a discussion, and we're looking for some form of, I don't know which way you're leaning, or some kind of guidance about where you think you're headed, just so we can move forward a little more educated guess. So that's my setup.
Thanks, Jim. Go ahead, Jess.
I was just gonna say, based on everything that we saw tonight, and based on everything we know about that there's a backlog to even buy the vehicles, I'm not that worried about not complying by 2035 if a lot of the school districts can't access the buses. And since we need the money now for other more crucial and impending things, I'm completely comfortable in waiting. I think we should wait. I don't really see any reason not to wait, because if we're not on time and so are all the other districts, I mean, what's the punishment gonna be?
Well, so, yeah, sorry, but the one thing we need to consider, and this has been said many times over the years, the trouble with non-compliance is we are so close to Albany and we are at the top of the alphabet. So if they start dinging people, we're on the top of the list. So that's the concern. However, I do think that they might change this mandate, but they haven't yet, is the other issue. And we think, oh yeah, well, logic says they should change the mandate, but they haven't changed a whole lot of mandates, so
Yeah. But I also don't wanna be the guinea pig. Like, I don't wanna be the one on the top of Taborton who has the bus that breaks down. The state's like, oh, sorry, we haven't figured that out yet. Good luck, guys. I don't want kids stuck up there.
No, Michelle.
I just want to agree with Jess that it's a hard no for me. Like there's no one in this room that's going to persuade me to put this on for May. for many reasons, and I've voiced those in the facility committee that I'm on, as well as I've been vocal on here. I just I don't agree with it, and I don't think it's feasible, and I don't think it's financially responsible of us to go on that endeavor right now in May.
I was just gonna agree with both of them. Just think it, for our voters, it's gonna look very financially irresponsible to put that up again. And I understand it's a mandate, but I also think it's ridiculous, and I don't think it's well thought out by the state. And if we don't comply, we don't comply. But I don't even think the suppliers are obviously not gonna be able to supply that many buses by 2035. So I think we're gonna be okay, but at this point, in our juncture, we're talking about cutting staff and programs for our students. The last thing in my mind is an electric bus, because I want to satisfy the government. So, sorry.
So if I were in charge, I would say this is the stupidest rule ever and should be repealed, and that would be that. But I'm not in charge. Some other people are. And right now we have this law and this requirement, which is stupid, but it's there. So I agree with you guys that this is the worst place to spend money. However, we're compelled by law to look at this in this short time period. So if we are really confident the law will change, and I hope it will, because it should, then we should not spend a dime on this year. It's a bad time to do this. However, if we're not confident the law will change, it might be good to buy one bus, because that becomes the test case for us, and we learn what we need to learn before we put more money down this path. We also take advantage of credits that are designed for early adopters that probably won't be there next year. So that one bus will be cheaper for us today than tomorrow. But again, it's a stupid purchase, and I'm totally against it. But logically, if the laws compel us to do it, I can see some reason for doing it this year.
So I understand what you're saying, but when they give us an incentive purchase for this bus, are they also giving us, the infrastructure, the charging station, everything that goes along with it? These batteries don't last very long. We're gonna have to buy the supercharged batteries it's a $300,000 bus.
I'm also concerned, just kind of to reiterate what we talked about before, like I just don't think that they have been tested and well thought out, and understanding the need for the backup battery and the limited time to be able to charge between the morning and the afternoon. I mean, our kids are our #1 priority, and I'm willing to bet that I don't think that, none of us know the future, but if we're gonna be penalized for protecting our kids, that's, I'm okay with that, especially given the climate that we're in right now. I care more about the kids getting home safely than I do about complying in this one instance. So
like, number one, I don't think anybody's gonna approve anything that is not determined to be safe. And so, one of the things that comes out to me is that one of the first things in your presentation, Jim, had to do with our principals. And that fourth bullet point, evidence-based decision-making. And I think part of what is frustrating everybody, or certainly me, besides the fact that it's like, do this no matter what, with no nuance. And again, this is where, the lack of nuance in the foundation aid grinds my gears, but no pun intended. Besides that, it's this, there's no data. I mean, like, Adam, you're a data guy. Like, would you ever in your business buy
There
a
is
piece
data.
of machinery?
There is data.
In
There
our
is-
kind of,
Yeah.
so why
In
would
our
we
bus district. Not
like
for
mountainous?
our.
That's what I'm saying, like from mountainous, there's like, I think that's
they
what we
can
need
even
is like,
Whole bridges.
like, are they, in Denver, Colorado, or are they, I guess Denver's flat, I think it's.
So there is data, there is a guide.
So money aside, because I agree with you guys 100% on the money part. I do think purchasing electric vehicles is a good idea. There's lots of reasons. There are health benefits. Not in terms of the pollution immediately, in terms of the long-term pollution, asthma cases going down in neighborhoods where there's this intense pollution. And there is a right way to roll out electric buses. And do we get an electric bus and the first route we run it on is up the Taborton Mountain? No, that is not what we do. We get an electric bus, we run it through a neighborhood that's densely populated, like over by Snyder's Lake, where there's a whole slew of houses that have kids, and that run is half the distance and probably even less than half the time than a run up to Taborton. So you do it, there is the right way to implement an electric bus. And we do test cases. And there is data on the bus ranges. Bus ranges now, their batteries are 100 to 200 miles. In 2015, a median range of an electric car was 90 miles. In 2022, that went up to 255 miles. So and so that's 7 years. You do that 7 years, we have our first bus next year, we run it in a neighborhood that's a shorter run and route, fine. Get our mechanics used to using electric buses and servicing electric buses. Get our neighborhoods, think of all the benefits, there are other benefits besides the air pollution. There are noise benefits. You think of running a diesel bus through a neighborhood, an electric bus through a neighborhood. You wouldn't even hear it. And maybe that's a detriment to some kids who run out when they hear the bus. But anyway, so we start there, and then in 7 years, when the range is much greater, like 2.5 times like it was with cars, then you move to Taborton. There is absolutely a right way you can roll these out. And what's that?
I said there's still all kinds of issues with the cars. They all just broke down on the interstate in the cold. Like there's a lot of issues.
But
with electric
and in a couple of years, they're going to have heat pumps for the heaters, so that's going to take that load off the batteries. I mean, there's progress being made on electric buses all the time. And I think by doing it now, there are other benefits, like we build relationships between the vendors who are selling these buses, the utilities that we need to be able to manage our load when we plug in. So we're not in, 5 years calling, I don't know, is it NYSEG or National Grid, and being like, okay, so what do we do here? Because we need to manage our load. We need to not pay peak demand for when everybody plugs in their bus at the same time. We have a relationship with them that we can work with them. So I think there's merit from that term, and we do need to meet the requirements eventually. I mean, because I do think they're going to change, but again, I'm not holding my breath. But I think now is like there's a learning curve, and we should get on that learning curve. That's my opinion. That's my opinion.
Have you checked with the local fire departments on how you put those vehicles out when they catch on fires?
Yeah, so I know I know there's issues. I'm not saying there's no issues.
No, I just want to.
Because when we had when we came out with gasoline vehicles 100 years ago, there was issues with fire with them too. So there's absolutely issues, but the more we learn, the better we get at it. So again, budget issues aside, though I would advocate we do it. After seeing what we just saw, it's like, I don't know how we do put that out to the voters, because if we're gonna ask them for a lot of money, I would ask them to go above the tax cap, to be honest with you, and save our program. So that, like I said, all those rationales, all aside from the money, because I agree with you guys on the money part.
That's I think what I'm saying. Like, I agree with you that, I'm all about sustainability and looking at our future for our generations to come. But right now, if we're going to the voters, would this be a bus proposition that we have to ask for? Like, so you're going to go out with a bus proposition that is going to fail, because everyone's going to see. So we could put it out there, but it's going to fail, because everyone's going to say, oh, wait, you're going to cut all these teachers, you're going to cut all the staff, you're in this budget deficit, but you want us to approve this bus? It just doesn't make sense.
That's where I'm at too. It's
Yeah,
like,
and I mean,
like I
it's
did.
just not the right time, I think.
Yeah, and there's a lot, this is a whole manual on electric buses. I mean, there's a lot of resources out there. And I just do think it is a good idea. I just think the timing right now,
Timing's bad.
we can't.
Well, and again, it's what I would ask from the state, which, I'm in the same boat as you in terms of like, not gonna hold my breath for that, is again, to be able to look at that nuance. And I know the one of the things we were talking about was, especially if we do sort of make the leap into, or dip our toe, I guess is a better analogy, is, exploring the possibilities of a hybrid functionality so that we don't have a fleet of 80 electric buses just waiting to explode because they can't all be in close together, but we can have a, right, she's the engineer, I'm not the engineer.
One actually just,
But anyway, so again, I think that's, looking for some give, and again, it sounds naive coming out of my mouth to see if in the next 2 years, if there's any kind of wiggle room
Well,
to get.
we're also talking about is if we can only do one bus. Because if we get the one bus, we need the infrastructure that comes with it. And we can't just do infrastructure for one bus.
Right, but there are incentives for infrastructure and things like that too. So, I mean, there are resources for that.
I think the governor needs to fix her foundation aid formula first, which will never happen, but I think she needs to fund schools and start like being a little more fair, so we don't have to make all these cuts to our programs for our kids, and then, I'd be fine complying with getting electric bus, sounds great, let's save the earth and do the right thing, but it's just such bad timing.
In the last presentation, I feel like you gave us some numbers, on the kind of infrastructure, support that would be, so there are funds out there for the infrastructure piece, it's not like completely good luck to you, correct?
Yeah, so if you do like the whole make ready, there's funds out there, there's grants for that, and also you can get some building aid and transportation aid on reimbursable, of course, so we could do it through a project like that as well. There also, for the chargers, there's incentive programs for the chargers that go along with them, so that, so there is money out there for pieces of the infrastructure.
That wouldn't be something that would be in our capital, not the capital project, the 100,000, but this would be more than, this would be more than that, like that would blow that up, right?
Well, we can do it as a capital, it's different aid.
And we couldn't use it for.
Yeah, so like the whole make ready, there's no way to do $100,000, right? So we'll do convert the entire garage, so that would have to be a capital project.
Yeah.
With the incentives that they're offering currently, do you know how much will we have to spend per bus at this point with the incentives? They say, I said, yeah, let's buy a bus.
So I
How
think
much would it be?
300,000.
There's the 300,000 number that we talked about?
400,000 or 500,000 apiece. They don't do the small buses yet, they only have the
That's right.
prototype.
You're right, I remember
So you
that.
have to get a full-size
I was
bus.
wondering if that 300 was our cost.
It would be-
After
that
all
would
the
be
incentives, I
it.
couldn't
I can't
remember.
imagine the small buses would be expensive.
Only cost as much as the house.
Is that what it was, Carrie? Was it 300?
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, honestly.
The electric bus, 64 passenger, 464,230. 3 battery bus, DC fast charger, apply to the program, incentive program. So the cost minus the voucher and the scrappage for the scrappage bonus brought the total purchase price to $255,990, $256,000. And the charger was 28, and the charging voucher was 25. But we didn't have the installation cost at that point. So bus, you're talking 250, call it, whatever, and the charging with the voucher, we just got to pay for the installation cost, but we don't know what that is yet.
Is that just a level 3 charging with the DC, or will that also include any level 1 charging stations?
I don't know.
This was a DC fast charger.
So it's a level 3 fast charger. And so will that also include infrastructure for personal vehicles in the school parking lots?
Not initially, no.
And I also wonder, my city, can they do it with their current? You know, like where power
Are you
comes on?
asking about the capacity?
If they can support the load.
I don't know, can they
Yeah.
support it?
Well, that's,
I don't know.
well, that's why I think early adopting would help with that, because it would build that relationship, and when we do need more.
Not all districts, but our district can. We were told in a facilities meeting that our district.
I didn't think it.
Level 3 requires a 480 volt system, like on the DC side, so it's pretty substantial.
So we can blame the power company when the state comes after us, say that they don't have the infrastructure.
But I do think building a relationship with them would help with that, and then just, making sure the load is flat and not spiky, and there's a lot of
Yeah,
things to it.
right.
So we don't get astronomical demand charges.
Right, yeah, that's,
Carrie, did the incentives go away in 24, 25, like 25, 26 would be the next
Okay.
step, I guess, on?
No, I think the one from the state, I think is rolling.
Say that.
The one from
I just can't hear Carrie.
One of the,
Can you hear Carrie?
so there are different pots of money. There's some that is going through NYSERDA. And the one that the state's doing is a rolling grant. So it's, the pot of money, the smart bond that was passed like by the voters of New York State like a while ago. So that money's in there. It's like a rolling, first come, first served. There are other grants out there, but a lot of them are going to priority districts, which are more your low income designated districts. So we don't get priority in those. So it's like, and so that opens up a little bit more.
You would think more geographical area would also be priority.
Yeah, not the way they designated the communities, the disadvantaged communities. There, a lot of them are under.
Yeah, although I think like Angela, like some of these
Right. But the fleet they hire would have to comply.
like private fleets, I thought it was only good.
New charter.
But that's kind of irrelevant to our conversation, I'm gonna reel that back in, so we don't stay on it. So I think that.
Was that helpful?
The takeaway from tonight is that we don't draft a lot of intent just yet. And, maybe I think we have to figure out what further information we need to either feel confident about, for some of us to feel confident about, say, go with your letter of intent or put your paper away.
Well, I think we're kind of there. I mean, we're not gonna know anything budget-wise, so knowing what we know right now, how are we gonna have the funds? Like, do we all feel comfortable saying that we're gonna cut X number of teachers so we can try to maybe comply with something that's just gonna increase our electric bill and everything else? And, I mean, it's absolutely crazy.
It will offset some fuel costs, but I agree with you, like, now is not the time to put something out to the voters that's saying we're cutting teachers, like Jackie said. We're cutting teachers, but we're gonna buy this more expensive bus. That is just,
But my point is that I don't think we're gonna have any more information than what we have right now.
Yeah.
Because we were just told our budget's gonna come.
Are you suggesting we
after.
vote to make a decision now?
She's
Well,
looking for guidance, but I don't know if we need another
Yeah,
meeting.
no,
So my point was, there are some benefits to being early and we can learn a lot. But as I said, in this budget, unless this budget climate changes, we should not invest in an electric bus.
Jim, even at the 3%, there's substantial cuts. So it's not like even unless we get some sort of unicorn, best case scenario, there's still cuts.
Yeah, at the 3%, you're looking at a $1.4 million reduction right now, which is more than last year's reduction.
Right.
Keep in mind, the bus proposition is separate from the general budget, right? So I think we've got to kind of make sure we talk through that a little bit too. You are talking about two separate things, to look at it that way. But to Jackie's point, always concerned when you put stuff on a budget, because they go on at the same time. If you put a bus proposition out that has the electric vehicle, and that gets voted down, then they're also voting down the rest of the bus proposition, right? Which gets us off the cycle that we've been on. I try to maintain.
Oh, there's that too, yeah, well,
So-
yeah,
Might
my,
also get them to vote down the budget.
Right.
If that, we're looking at response.
I mean, I think at least a few of us feel like we should not do that, not do the bus this year.
I mean, and, so just so we're clear, like, I agree 100% that I don't think that we can do this, it's irresponsible. I appreciate all the information from Jesse. It makes me feel better long-term, but it feels very, it doesn't feel comfortable. My only fear is, is there any potential that we're gonna be doing any better budget-wise in 25, 26? Like, are we just gonna be having this exact same conversation? And that, again, that doesn't change how I feel about this right now, but that is in the back of my mind, is it's just gonna it's gonna like Groundhog Day.
Yeah, but I don't know, I just feel like we're just faced with emergency upon emergency, so we just we can just take all the information we have and make the decision right now. And it can get worse, but hopefully it can get better. And I don't want to cause more problems by getting off the bus cycle too, because then we open up a whole nother can of worms. And I just, even myself as a voter, knowing what I know and, supporting clean energy, I don't think that I would necessarily be gung-ho to support that right now.
And again, this feels like one of those unfunded mandates. It's
Right.
if the state wants to meet our climate and energy goals, which I agree with, they need to help us get there, and they're not at this point. But I do think over long term, if we can help the impact of climate change, and again, it's not gonna be next year, if we buy one electric bus, climate change isn't gonna stop. It's a long-term thing, but then that eventually, years out, we're gonna see these catastrophic storms subside that we've been having more recently. And so there'll be less budgetary impact, like maybe we wouldn't have had that storm 2 years ago where we had to spend $2 million fixing the floor a month before school started, in the whole building. So there are long-term benefits to it, and I think we need to get there, but I don't think this state is helping us do that at this point. If they want us to move school buses, they have to fund the students' education first, and then help us get there with the buses.
And I would venture to say that anybody from the advocacy committee would be happy to pass along those sentiments to anybody who might listen. Carrie, your smile is like, good luck with that.
I know Michelle's got this.
You don't need a formal vote from us on this.
No, we just wanted to kind of essentially poll the board to find out where you were. It sounds like we have enough direction to go forward, and Mark can sign the letter of intent for of the two options Carrie provided in the last meeting, the one that's not the electric bus option. For option one and two.
It is unfortunate.
Well, but it's, entirely foreseeable. All right.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I just crossed off something, we haven't done.
Oh,
Well, that was fun. Hey, how about we're gonna do some really fast?
Can I say that loud? This is my microphone.
Item number 6. I can get a motion to approve the minutes of January 2022, 2024. That is Jess and Jackie seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Linda, thank you. All right. Can I motion to approve consent items 7, 8, and 9? Jesse first, Jess D second. Some discussion on the consent. Adam and Jess.
So I had a question for Carrie around, excuse me, item 7C, the agreement with educational data. I'm always concerned when a vendor provides me with a report on how beneficial their services are and how much money they're saving me when they're sending me a bill at the same time. Have we ever done a reality check on those savings? Are they based upon the prices that we'd likely pay if we didn't have them? Or are they just based upon retail prices that nobody pays anyway? Or I'm just curious.
So I did reach out to them, and they used to compare state contract, but the way the state contracts are done now, it's gotten harder to compare it. So this most recent one is based off of catalog prices. But the one thing I will say about what ed data is it takes away the administrative responsibility of doing RFP for all the different school supplies and whatnot, but the program that it comes with is electronic. So teachers go on and select everything. It goes electronically to the principals, and then it can electronically download into our system and generate POs that can then be emailed. So the administrative piece that this program also takes up of all the building secretaries for not having to manually input every teacher's order at the beginning of the year, and then our purchasing agent for not having to like print every single PL, stuff them in an envelope and mail them out the door. There's a huge administrative savings with this too. So that piece right there is really big for us. That's why we really like the program. The savings, if you look at, they say 60% off of catalog. I mean, you can get discounts using state contract pricing, but it just overall, the program is really nice.
The cost of the program, I think, was about 10 grand a year, and that, it seems like an administrative savings, it's more than that, so it pays for itself there. Already.
Yeah, that's the big draw for the program too. So you get you meet your bidding requirements, but at the same time, you reduce your administrative burden quite a bit.
Cool. All right, thank you. And then my other question was in 8C, it's a approval of rescinding appointments, which I don't know who this question is for, but we're actually rescinding appointments, or like, why are we doing that?
Well, unfortunately, Odyssey of the Mind doesn't have any student interest this year. So we're rescinding the appointment for Amy Miller, who was appointed as a coach, and then the coordinator of the program. And then the other the rescind action for the grade 11 advisor, that those two teachers were sharing that stipend. We got notice that one of the teachers, Nicole Monroe, no longer wants to do it. So if you notice, the next item is, should be appointing Elena Oldendorf as the sole advisor of the grade 11.
All right, thank you. That answers my questions.
I just want to take a moment and acknowledge the 3 teachers that are on this agenda for retirement: Jim McPartland, Larry Quinn, and Kathy Slyer. We didn't even do the math, but we're talking about great. Some, not tonight. So 86 years it represents over those 3 people. So I just want to thank them for their service to the district and wish them well in their retirement.
Anybody? I want to just point out that there's something there just for the mentorship program, and I always like to see that, because we hear all the time about how effective it is. And that's like a perfect segue into a memo that got approved in the course of this consent agenda was, I'm just going to read from it. Families of Ellen Roy, who was a mentor, who was a first grade teacher at Post and Hill, who passed away this year, very, very tragically. Families of Ellen Roy and Pat Smart want to establish a new scholarship in their memory. The name of the scholarship is the Bookends Memorial Scholarship, in memory of Ellen Roy and Pat Smart, Post and Hill Elementary School teachers. The scholarship will be awarded to a graduating senior planning to pursue elementary education. One recipient will receive $1,000 each year until the funds expire. The goal is to award the scholarship for 12 years until the last of Ellen Roy's first graders have graduated. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I did want to also thank the Roy and the Smart families for creating this scholarship. So for those of you who don't know, Pat Smart and Ellen Roy were sisters. Pat was the oldest of many, and Ellen was the youngest. Pat was a teacher at Post and Hill when I was a student at Post and Hill. So she actually also passed away this year. So so I think this is a lovely, lovely way to honor both those teachers, sisters, in this wonderful scholarship. As sad as it was to get here, I think it's a lovely way to honor both of them.
Thank you. Thanks, guys, for being here. Action items.
Nope, we need to.
Oh my gosh, we didn't vote. That was a discussion. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
My mom reads fuzzy. Okay. All those in favor of passing that? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Now on to action items. I need a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement by and between Averill Park Central School District and the Averill Park Teachers Association regarding the retirement of Lawrence Quinn. Adam first, Jess D second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's unanimous. And B, you motion to approve the memorandum of agreement by and between Averill Park Central School District and Averill Park Teachers Association regarding the retirement of Mary Slyer, Adam, and Jackie. Any discussion? I'm just grateful my belly has had Miss Slyer as teacher. Okay, nothing else? All those in favor? That's unanimous. 10C, motion to approve the overnight adventure for youth and government club state conference at the Desmond in Albany, in Capitol Building, Albany, March 22nd through 24th, 2024. Jackie first, Jess D seconds. Any discussion? I'm sure kids are going to do us proud over there at Capitol. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Okay. Policy, everyone's favorite topic. We have the first reading here for 9270.1, that's compensation for substitute teachers.
I'm just gonna make, because it's a short one, I'm gonna make a motion to waive the second reading and adopt as written.
And the second for that from Jess D. Any discussion, questions? Okay. All those in favor of waiving the second reading, approving policy 9270.1. That's unanimous. We have second readings, so 11B, policy 1740, relationship to non-public schools. There's been one question about one line in there. I just need a motion. Oh, no, I don't. We're discussing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay. Question, comment, Adam?
So I wanted to thank Kim for clarifying where my concern was. My concern still remains because I don't believe the policy says in clear language sort of the intention or the spirit that she described behind it. So where it says textbooks must be non-sectarian in nature and may not carry the endorsement of a religious authority, I would like to strike the second part of that sentence so that it just says textbooks may not be sectarian in nature. Must be non-sectarian. Sorry, jet lag. Textbooks must be non-sectarian in nature, period, and a paragraph.
And I think just reading the explanation from NISBA, it's just saying that it's non-sectarian in nature, fulfills the few sentences that they passed along to us. That was the root of why that sentence was there. So.
Well, in saying may not carry the endorsement, like what does that even mean?
Right.
May is not a binding letter, it makes it clear to get rid of that.
Yeah.
And if it's a great textbook that we support, why do we care that they're not a religious organization endorsed it? So I fully support Adam's edit.
Did we have concerns with that?
Yes.
So I make a motion to approve it with Adam's edit.
I'll second.
And did you get that?
Second.
Justine. And Kim, do you need any clarification on what that edit was?
Nope, I just made it.
Beautiful. Okay. Okay, so we have a first, a second on the floor. It's up for a vote. All those in favor of 1740 with edits? Justin, Michelle, did you have one? No. Okay, thanks, guys. That's unanimous. Michelle, you're just fast. I can't keep up with you. Look at Joe. All right. 11C, second reading policy 6700, purchasing. Discussion. Take it away. Anybody? No? Really excited. If anybody is interested in.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Justine. Next motion to waive the third reading. And adopt as is. Would anybody like to second that? Adam? Okay. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? That is, unanimous. Okay. We have number 12 is a resolution. And the resolution before us is that the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, award contract for security upgrades in the 23-24 capital outlay project to the lowest bidder, New England Security Firm LLC, located in Monroe, New York, for a total amount of $92,764. Jackie first. Adam seconds. Any discussion? No discussion? Okay, all those in favor of passing this resolution? That is unanimous. We're just notified in item 13 of a change order in phase 2. Do I need to, I don't need to read the whole thing, it's in writing on our agenda. Oh, right. Thank you guys, that was my first one. Our second, thank you guys for waiting for our second, sorry, I'm scrolling and reading at the same time. Turns out I can't multitask as well as I thought. This is our second public comment period for items not on the agenda. I have, these we're asked to keep them to 3 minutes. I have Lance, Amy, and Tyler. Am I saying, is that right? Yep. Okay. Lance is going to be speaking. And
I'm Lance Harding. Okay, sorry.
Sorry. Oh my gosh, I just told you that. I didn't mean to say that.
We need to come to mindful for the people who are viewing at home and are recording.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you for your patience.
No problem. You want to?
Okay. Take it away, Lance.
Okay, I'm Lance Harding. I am a member of the Averill Park community. My son's 8th grade CYO basketball coach, which I am a volunteer. I have a whole 3-minute spiel I worked out about creating opportunities for every kid, and I had this big speech about if not me, then who, which is on the Algonquin Middle School. If not now, then when. I had this whole spiel brought up, and then I come to the meeting and everything comes down to money. It's always about money. I'm not asking for money from the school. I'm just asking for an opportunity for the kids to play basketball. We have a good community here with a lot of businesses, a lot of volunteers. That we have over 40 kids, right, 40 kids in the 8th grade youth basketball program that have nowhere to go when they go into high school. We have gym time, we have buses, we have JV program and varsity program that both travel to away games. When I played 9th grade freshman basketball in Colony, we traveled with the JV team, so there wasn't any added expense. I guess what I'm asking for is just the opportunity for the community to come up and fund its own program. We have volunteers that are probably willing to coach, no charge. I purchased my own practice jerseys for my team. I didn't ask for a cent from any of the parents. A lot of the parents were not aware that we don't have a 9th grade basketball program. When I first went to the practice, we asked the kids if they wanted to play for the school. Everyone said yes. Now, not everybody gets that opportunity, but they should have the opportunity to try out for it. None of the parents, most of the parents that I'm aware of, were not aware that we did not have a 9th grade basketball program, which was news to them. By the time they get in 9th grade or are informed, it's too late. We need a program to reach out to the youth organization who provides these kids from 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, all capital district stuff, volunteer programs, fund their own programs. We need the athletic director or somebody from the school just to reach out to these programs to make it sustainable. We can reach out, we have volunteers that are willing to reach out to businesses, donations, anything to fund our own program. We just need the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance.
You're welcome.
Thanks very much. And this is Jean Bradley. Thank you, and similar topic.
Good evening, my name's Gene Bradley. I'm up here to represent, currently the president of Averill Park Youth Basketball. I've been in that position for 2 years. Prior to that, 5 years as the travel director for the organization, and been a volunteer for it for 10 years. In my time as volunteer for 10 years, I've seen the interest in youth sports continue, and specifically basketball in this case, continue to grow from an organization that had 12 teams to right now we are fielding 22 teams combined on the girls and the boys side of basketball. The interest for basketball, the interest of the community, the interest for the students, for the athletes, it's there and it's continuing to grow. Every year we're getting bigger and bigger in our organization. We're getting kids at the kindergarten level, first grade, second, third grade, all the way up. They're continuing to want to grow. But then we bottleneck as soon as we reach the school athletics. We get to a point where we as Averill Park, and many of you may know, may not know, we are the only school in the suburban council that does not have a freshman team, whether it be on the boys, girls side, doesn't matter. And what that includes, okay, and the suburban council, for those that are, don't know, that's Shed, that's Shaker, that's South Colony, that's Bethlehem. These are large schools, okay, and I understand that. But there are also schools that have found ways to be able to accommodate everybody at every level. Kids, their interest to continue to grow with those interests themselves. We see a situation where kids want to, they get to 8th grade, all of a sudden they want to get into, they have to go into JV. Well, on JV, all of a sudden, now we're only taking 12 kids, okay? Well, I have 40 kids at the 8th grade level right now that want to play basketball. But you know what, I don't even go beyond that because it's, I probably have 50 kids on both sides, okay? A scenario where you got a modified team, I can speak on the boys' side, that is fielding 19 kids. How is one coach supposed to continue the growth of 19 kids? So by that point, at 7th grade, kids start to fall out. Then 8th grade, they fall out. Then in 9th grade, they start to fall out because now they're developing physically differently than most other schools. Now we're out there on the JV team. We're facing a CBA who has a reclassification situation going on, who now you're looking at grown young men playing against smaller kids, okay? We don't have that opportunity for those kids to continue to grow. And that's what a freshman team would do. It allowed kids to grow physically in their own bodies, but also be able to grow athletically with everybody else in the council. All right, so it may not be something that is in the immediate future, but I really believe we need to continue speaking about this opportunity because that bottleneck out there is really causing a situation where kids at all those levels have started to fall back onto other things. They're not given those opportunities, and it's terrible to see that these kids don't get those opportunities. Thank you very much for your time.
Can I just ask a question, G? So there's modified, there's JV, and then there's varsity. Is there also an extra team? Like, I guess I didn't know, I'm not as familiar with this freshman team thing.
Yes. So a freshman team, and some schools call it a mod 9. So what they do is it's usually your 9th graders will be on there, maybe your more experienced 8th graders will be on there, or maybe 10th graders that need to develop a little bit more. It's that extra level of development there. You're going to take your more skilled younger kids, be able to play them up with the same type of skilled players, but not against the physically more dominant players that would be on a JV team in 10th grade. Because the difference between a 9th grader and a 10th grader is pretty significant.
And is that true? Is that in every other school except ours has it? And is that for boys only, or is that on both sides?
Boys and girls.
And every other school has it except for us?
My understanding, definitely on the boys' side, the girls' side, my understanding as well is, yeah, they're both on both sides.
Okay, thank you.
What was the number again you said? How many students you thought were gonna be interested that we're not going to, I guess,
So
make it?
if
Did
you
you say
take
40 or 50?
You take my 8th grade, just 8th grade alone this year, and that's counting just Averill Park CYO, Averill Park basketball itself. We have close to 50 students right now that are going to be vying for 12 spots on one side and 12 spots on the other, you know, as far as girls and boys side, you know, for JV. And then that's not counting who's already in ninth grade and who's still continuing on.
We appreciate those numbers because obviously that aligns with one of the district's goals, right? So providing extra
Opportunity.
Well, no, but like, so because I think sports are just as important as curriculum. I think they teach students things that you know, just textbooks cannot. So parents cannot, you know, teamwork and camaraderie and competitiveness and all kinds of things. So I'm definitely a pro sports, and I thought that number seems like a high number of students that would be missing an opportunity.
We have built a program in the 10 years that I've been here through past presidents and through myself now that has a little excitement about basketball. It's specifically, but sports in generally. You go to any one of my games on the weekends, it's a community thing. You have kids coming in there, they're cheering each other on, they're doing all this stuff. People want to do that. I mean, I was really disappointed to hear about Odyssey of the Mind. That's very disappointing to hear. But whereas there may not be interest in somewhere here, there's tons of interest in other aspects of what's going on in our community. And I think it's really important that we step back and we start thinking about how that interest is going to help out our community long term and what it can do for the kids and for families as a whole.
I agree. Thank you.
So I agree with what Michelle just said about it being just as important, whether if kids are involved in clubs or sports. It also keeps kids, involved in extracurricular activities instead of doing things they shouldn't be doing. There's not a lot other than the school and sports to do out here in Averill Park, in the middle of nowhere. That being said, my daughter does play for Averill Park youth basketball. She's in 5th grade. She loves it. He's right. Every weekend, the gyms are filled with kids and families. It is a huge community thing. I'm not exactly sure what you're looking for. I know our budgets are crazy, but I do remember very strongly years ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, when we were trying to implement boys lacrosse. The parents, and I know we can't be paid to play, but I personally had to pay $800 a year for my son to play on our school team. So there is a way to do it. I just don't know with that, the boys and girls sports. I know they have to be equal. Title IX, that's what it's called. So I don't know how to do that, but if there's a way that maybe we don't have the funds, if Averill Park youth basketball is willing to ante up some of those funds, and we can have a Mod 9 program, kind of like we did with boys lacrosse years ago.
That's what I was going with. It's no different than Pop Warner or Little League.
Right.
Anything those outside programs do, they fund by donations. Okay, we got parents that are willing to go out, reach out to businesses for sponsorship dollars. If it comes down to uniforms, parents will get together, hoard money, put it towards uniforms. We have raffle. Anything to get the sport continuing on. We have the space, we just need the opportunity to fundraise and not take school dollars away from your budget, but have the program go.
Right, and that's what we did with lacrosse, right? We paid for the whole program, all the parents, we got people to sponsor us, businesses, whatever, went out for donations. And this was, my son was a freshman. He graduated in 2021, so it wasn't that long ago.
Nope.
So, and then eventually we were in a position where the school was able to fund it, but it was a couple years, I wanna say maybe 2 or 3 years where I had to pay quite a bit of money. It was like $800 a student. So, yeah.
And the good thing is about basketball is the overhead is much cheaper than it is for lacrosse, as you probably know.
Right.
I mean, with equipment and everything like that.
Everything, right. So I don't know if that's how we look at that, but I think it's something we should definitely think about. If they can somehow provide funding, that's my opinion.
Just to echo what Jackie says, I have 2 kids in basketball at Averill Park, and it's huge. Oh, I see Gene all weekend. He tries to run from me now when he sees me, but it's it's a huge community presence, and I honestly didn't know there was a freshman team, mainly because I went to a really small school, but it sounds like there's a lot of
We have
demand.
Mod 9 girls soccer. We used to.
Do we have it in any sport?
That was cut in 08, 09.
Okay, I knew we used to have it.
We used to have freshman teams across the board.
I graduated in 2000 from here, and we had Mod 9 in just about everything.
And to speak on behalf of Averill, obviously Ken isn't present, but we always work with the district, we always work with the coaches, anything that we can do to help continue to build that relationship between the school and us. We're constantly doing it. I'm in Pugs' ear, Pugs is in my ear, I'm in Coach Morgan's ear, that kind of thing. And I think we have a great relationship, and I think that's something that when it becomes serious talk, I think it's something that we certainly could sit down and we could start crunching numbers here and there and see where that benefits everyone. Certainly.
Yeah, and our basketball coaches are actually there all weekend long. Keegan is there all weekend long. Same thing, he's in the program. Oregon, he coaches for a different school district. His kids go to a different school district, but he's there. I see him at the tournaments, so they would be in favor. I don't know what we do, like I know it can't be fair across the board that every sport's gonna get that look, but if you have a youth organization that's willing to chip in money-wise, I don't know how we do that. I've never done that before.
Well, so it's technically we're going over time.
I know.
In that we're, no, I mean,
I know,
but
we don't
I mean,
normally
we
discuss
did,
this,
when something like this comes up, that is, it's important to the kids in the community. B, it's one of those things where it's like, this ought to be able to, and it's, there are some roadblocks, there are some potentiality there. I mean, I think what I would say is if we can take this input, like you guys just gave us a whole whack. And for me, like I don't have basketball players, I have a swimmer and a gymnast, so, it's all, a lot of that is new information to me. So taking in that information and then figuring out, what umbrella does it fall under and what would be the next step or what would be the roadblocks or something like that. I think, so, Jim has both of your contact info, Jim, I gave you both, yeah. And, this would, if more discussion, my mind goes to like logistics, insurance, administration, all of the super unfun,
killer.
not talking about I'm buzzing. You guys have fun with the kids. I'm gonna puzzle out the administration of an external, community funding, but that's fine, I don't know. It's all good. But so yeah, I think from here, Jim has contact information, I think we'll follow up on this. You guys know the landscape right now and there's some past precedent for that in support, there's some past precedent, not precedent, that might be more roadblocks, but I think that you just gotta start somewhere, so, thank you guys.
Biggest roadblock money though?
I mean, isn't it always?
Right.
Right, it's always.
So we're willing to fund the
But
whole
it's not
program.
just money, but it's, I mean.
But it's usually the biggest one, yeah.
And just to kind of wrap it up, when you're talking about the suburban council, this has been kind of a point of a real thorn in our side, is that you're naming off those, the cartoon characters with the money things in their eyeballs. All I can see is, the 29% increase that South Colony got, the 23% that Bethlehem got. I don't know if if Megan was here, you guys are not interchangeable. If Megan was here, she would know exactly the number that Shen increased that Shen got off the top of her head. And it's very hard because East Greenbush, 27% or something. And, great programs over there. And we are holding our own with these schools that are getting far, far more resources. And so when I hear you say that, it's again, the cartoons were my face getting red in the cartoons. So it's money. Is it just money? I don't know yet. So
I think there's resources out here.
Yeah, so that's why.
I would
They never
encourage
been
you guys
followed.
to look at your advocacy emails and contact our state legislators to advocate for more funding and changing the funding formula.
Because, and that's who they want to hear, like, there are, I don't know, Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm probably sitting here from last, by now. But the more people, because, I mean, this is what we're talking about, when they talk about cuts or hold harmless, or, you know, it's not just negative $700,000 in a vacuum, it's programs for kids. And I think we have a track record of supporting our kids. And when we have the opportunity, if the means was there, like, if you know, bring it there.
Well, and I
so-
think that that's what makes the most sense, and we talk about being transparent a lot. It's easy to see a dollar figure, but putting those numbers behind something, behind a face in our district, behind a program for a child in our district, behind them being involved in something, and I think that's kind of where we are. It might seem like we're putting the ball back in your court, but we're not. We're just saying, help us help you. We want to help you.
I just want the
But
opportunity
I've been in
to
so
fund it.
many hours of meetings at the Capitol that, in the district office and here, and so has Sam, and Adam's been in some, Jess has been in some. We've all been countless hours that we don't get paid for. We take time away from our business and careers and everything else. So not to minimize that, but the point is that I personally feel when you start putting, you know, layman's terms, so to say, like this program is going to leave if we don't get funding, that's impactful, like, right? So like my children are very small. One will be starting kindergarten next year in district, and one is in first grade. So I was really shocked, and I'm really upset, and I'm going Wednesday to the Capitol, and I have meetings with everyone, just so you know, but about no business program. I was a business major, you know, so that was something important, but I actually started that in high school, and that's kind of, I feel like, kind of projected me in life. So it saddens me that it seems like something so basic so long ago is gone now. Something like this. I'm from Florida, so we had JV, which starts, you know, everybody just, you best of the best gets it. So this whole 9 modified is completely new to me. So I appreciate your experience in bringing all of that in, because we talk about it all the time. Like when you're newer in the area, we throw a lot around. They throw around a lot of acronyms and things. It takes time to come on board. So like, you know, Jess didn't realize that there wasn't a 9 modified, I guess is what you guys called it, right? 9 mod. So it's definitely information, but we want to help you. And I think Jim has all the information that we can get you some answers one way or another. And I realize you're saying you're going to fund it financially if you get approval, which would help, but let's try to see if we can find a way to get it funded for you.
That's fine.
So if you want to if you have that many people following you, like Jim said earlier, he's going to send out an email. All they have to do is just click, and if they start getting blasted, let the rules shine. Let them hear from us.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, our students matter. Rural students matter. They really do. And they just got hit hard. And I'm fired up about it. So, obviously, but I want to help you.
Well, and actually, that sort of segues right into our board member reports. So, Michelle, so if you guys want to stay, if there's like, you know, a few more minutes left, we're gonna, yeah. But I do want to thank you guys for coming out and for waiting. So I get that it's like, that we ask you to wait, and we appreciate it. So it's, you know, it's nice to see some faces, even if it's a captain audience. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, guys.
Michelle is gonna to give a board report, her board member.
I like when Grace goes first. It gives me time to regroup.
I know.
So Grace, go ahead. So a couple things. We were in several meetings in the last 2 weeks, but one of which was a facilities meeting that went well. And one of the things that we talked about that was pretty eye-opening to myself was the fact that the turf robot, to me, they're, again, going back to layman's terms, just, and I know we're gonna have a couple other discussions from my understanding before we actually vote on stuff, but the robot, I would like for the public to know before we like present things, like what exactly are the man hours that are gonna be saved So if we can tie that to either like, personnel, like something like give us some kind of meat behind it rather than $15,000 a year for the robot, because I do think that there would be probably a substantial potentially savings if it takes, say, 4 people, right? X number of hours every week. And then if we multiply that out, okay, well, this is actually what we're already paying versus what we would go to and move forward to, right? I think that the guys were saying in the meeting that potentially we would even save as far as like paint. So something when we start talking about we're going to lose funding, and you say, well, let's just do this new kind of, seems like out there $15,000 robot in a rural district, but in all reality, I think it might actually save us some money and then catch us up to real time, right? So I was going to send that in an email to you, so I did not expect you to have any of that. But just something to chew on for the future stuff, because I think that would be very beneficial for the public to know and kind of be transparent on if we would be saving money, because I would like to get those guys the robot if we can. I would like to give everybody yeses, but we're trying. The virtual conference that was for at least 4 hours, Jim, Friday. So disappointing. Beyond disappointing for me personally. We sit in a lot of meetings and we try to, talk about how we can move the ball forward, right? That's the big thing, move the ball forward. What's our next style? What's our next game plan? And to me, it was just smoke, mirror, and show. Like, it was no truth. It was all talking in circles. And I just didn't, I was sad. I was really sad that this was the virtual conference. Yeah, it was I guess the initial one before we go Wednesday, right? So it was all virtually. And I was really hoping we could get some meat and potatoes out of it, so to say. And it was sad. They just talked in circles and they would tell you something and then they'd come back. And I was like, I hope this is recorded and they actually go back and listen to themselves, because it was a complete circle and what they would say would not match up like the next statement, which is typical in politics, I guess. But it was disheartening. So I was hoping to have more things for that, but hopefully Wednesday's our day. We're shooting for it. So.
All right.
Just another continuation of, I think, many depressing meetings to come in the next couple months. The one silver light, I just think it's wonderful how much you guys have gotten the kids involved with figuring out the warrior replacement. Talking about, making lemonade out of lemons. And I like the idea of the unity too among the district. I think the kids are enjoying it and we're really making the best out of an unfortunate situation. Other than that, good luck at Lobby Day.
I'm really jet lagged and tired, so I'm just not gonna add anything. I got back from China last night around midnight.
I just wanted to thank the advocacy committee and everybody that is lobbying for our district. It's really important work and I appreciate your fire. So go get them on Wednesday. I know we've been sending out emails about the advocacy and the letters. Is there a way to put a widget on like the landing page of the district website, just so people can find it quick if they needed to? Like with a little quick, like
advocate,
like something
advocate
like
here.
Yeah, like something splashy that they'll see it right away. They don't have to go looking for it. Just, I don't know how many people actually go to websites, but if they are looking at it, at least it's there. I just wanted to also thank Carrie and everybody for your extra hard work on creating 100 different budgets and figuring it all out. And then also, what Jess said about the warrior naming, it's pretty awesome to see the students getting so involved right from, elementary right on up. I know the student councils in the elementary schools are really into it. And oh my gosh, winning the sectionals for the wrestling team, that's amazing. And the sportsmanship award, wow. So we're doing some really good things here. So that's it.
Yeah, I just want to take a second because I agree with my board colleagues in what they've said, but I do think that advocacy committee and all the hours you guys are putting into this to help our district in any way we can. And I hope it turns out to be, we get some fruit out of it, because it is a lot of time, but I think it's, going to be not just a seasonal issue, it's going to be until they change that state aid formula and realize that we at Averill Park are working on a $60 million budget, and other schools our size are working on a $90 million budget, or 70 some, well north of what we are. So, but I do appreciate every second you guys pour into it, and all your other resources, your heart and soul, because it is super important, so thank you.
Thanks, guys, it's, not that it's lemonade on lemon, but you guys are taking everything in stride. And I think that speaks to how well this sort of body is working as its own entity, that we're not, we're passionate and we're frustrated, but we're not losing our minds, knock on wood, not yet. And hopefully we won't. I am also looking forward to Wednesday, because I do feel, there's something about the virtual. It was super handy. It is super handy when you need it, but it's not. It doesn't allow for, there's that word again, nuance, that I keep coming back to. And you definitely get the feeling that a lot of these folks are operating up here, and we're down here with the kids saying, here are the real ramifications of what you're talking about so sort of flippantly. I think that was one of the things that sort of came across in that virtual conference, was sort of the flippant, I don't know if infantilizing is the right word, but just sort of, you'll be okay. That's, a little patronizing, as if we couldn't do the math, as if we didn't have, Carrie here running 4 different budgets for us. And so that was, and again, when bringing beyond the formula, which, as I have more of these conversations, unfortunately, I'm starting to feel like, any changes to the formula, I mean, that could be 10 years from now. But what I appreciate very much from Carrie is just, there are other avenues that we can use to sort of push back, open things up, move money around, and sort of ask for things out of our funding that give us more leeway to do what we're doing. And I just want to say again how, the extent to which we achieve what we achieve with the means that we have is pretty extraordinary when you look at what other districts that we are, that we are spoken in the same breath with all these other districts for a fraction. And it's just incredible. And I don't want it to be like that forever. So, yeah, sectional, right? Sectional. Yeah. All this amazing artwork. That's again, and I just wanted to chime in. I know it wasn't on the topics tonight, but that arts and music that have the same, that similar impact as sports in terms of extracurricular, and like building the whole child. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jesse, that those are only just starting to claw their way back from 08, 09. And I can't stress how much the arts is, can be an avenue. I was listening to a piece on the radio today that a businesswoman who learned her leadership skills from being a stage manager in her high school productions. And she knew she wasn't going to end up in the theater, but it was those skills that allowed her to go to like a boardroom and sort of commit and figure out all parts. So it's all important for the student every day. I'm going to stop talking and we can wrap this up. That's it.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Jess first, Adam second, all those in favor? Chin up, that passes unanimously. Everyone's like, do we need to go to the pub or something? You guys are looking like pick me up. The saddest stack of.
I wish I could be on the advocacy committee. It just really bothers me.
You guys.